So, as I said, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the what is now the autumn series, as I believe month by month it's now autumn, being September the 1st, and welcome to the first webinar in this series, and welcome back to those that have attended the numerous ones that we've done over summer and also spring. Today we're going to take people through the OT service through bathrooms and falls and understanding the risks behind that. So first of all, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Stephen Edwards. I'm the head of the marketing for Closomat. I've been in Closomat now just over a year, and as I said, it's great to have the chance to talk to everyone that's on the call today. We'll be spending about half an hour going through the content, which Lucy Leonard from the OT service will take you through, and also then Jeff Clark from Closomat, who's a product specialist, will be taking you through a little bit of information about Closomat itself. Now, before we get to Lucy's bit, I'd like to do, for those that are aware of what we do on these webinars, you will be aware that we ask just a few questions of you. So I'd first of all like to launch the first poll, just to ask people the job role that they're in. It just helps us understand, Lucy and Jeff understand who we've got on the webinar today, just if there's anything that we need to ask that's relevant to a specific industry that you work in. I would expect, as I'm seeing the numbers coming through, the majority of you will be OTs, which is great. A decent percentage number of grants, technical officers on the call, a couple of distributors. Great to see you guys here, and that's great. I think we're up to 80-odd%. I'll just give it a couple more seconds to get as many as we can. But I think overall we've got about 80% of OTs on the webinar today, which is great. Thank you for that. Okay, I'll just give it one more second. Great, thank you for that. Okay, so the next poll I've got is just a couple of questions around BFG really, and how you're conducting your assessments. So again, if it's relevant to your role, are you conducting assessments more often, about the same as usual, less than usual, less but getting busier? So there's a couple on there, much busier, and then less but getting busier, and then still not able to do assessments being the final one on there as well. Again, I'll give you sort of a minute or so just to complete on here. Apologies if some of you can't see the polls. I've seen a couple of chats coming in. You should be able to. I know the majority of you can because of the percentage that we're getting clicking in. Maybe worth just clicking on the a refresh on your Zoom, and that might bring up the polls again. Okay. And again, we're up to 70-odd%, so just give this one more minute. Okay, what I would say on this, it looks as though nearly half of you about the same as usual. So again, that's good to see. We did this about sort of 3 or 4 weeks ago now, and it was predominantly the higher percentage was less than usual, less but getting busier. So it's good to see that the majority now, sort of 40% of you are about the same as usual. And actually, if you added up that but getting busier as well, that would be well above 50%. So thank you for that. That's a really positive outcome. And then I've just got one more for now, which is, and I'll launch this one. So roughly, what mix of assessment types are you conducting at the moment, if relevant to your job? So really this is about, would you say they're all on-site, more than 3/4 on-site, split really 50-50 between on-site and remote? Would you say more than 3/4 were remote at the moment, all of them were remote, or you're not doing assessments at all? And it could be that they're not relevant to your job role, as in not doing assessments. So again, I'll just give this a couple of seconds. We're up to 70% again, which is brilliant. So I really appreciate everybody taking the time to click on the ones that are relevant to them. Okay, nearly there. We'll get up to 80%. So again, what I can see on here is nearly a quarter of you of more than 75% on site. And actually what's really interesting is almost a similar amount, more than 75% remote. So it's quite interesting to see that split. That again has changed from 2-3 weeks ago when we did this. It was sort of 50 to 60%, where 75% or above on remote. So I think that's quite interesting that more people now are going to sites as obviously sort of more and more people come out of the lockdown. So again, we see that as a positive thing. And Jeff will talk a little bit more about the remote assessments that we've got in place if you're not already aware of what we do. Thank you. Okay, so just a final one from me on here. Again, it's a pretty simple one here. So do you have a set number of contractors for DFG work, or can you be flexible? So again, this may not be relevant to a lot of people that are on this, but nevertheless, do you have a set number of contractors and you can only use those? Is it flexible and you can choose by job? Are you not sure because it's not that relevant to your role, or again, you've got a specific non-relevant on there? And I suspect, given the number of occupational therapists that we've got on this webinar today, I imagine a lot of you will be not relevant. Okay. Just wait 1 second on there. Excellent. And again, thanks everyone. A really good percentage of polls that have been completed. 1 more minute. Okay, so as I thought, sort of 60% of you not sure or not relevant. But I think what's interesting is a fifth actually, have a fixed set number of contractors that you would use, and only sort of 10% can have that flexibility. You can choose by job. Okay. Thank you for that. Right, now, without further ado, I will hand you over to Lucy to take you through the main part of the content for today. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining this Zoom presentation. And I'm hoping, like me, you will leave the presentation feeling quite passionate about prevention of falls and the unique role that occupational therapy can play in reducing falls and people that we work with. So as Stephen said, I'm Lucy Leonard. I'm an associate with the OT service. I've been an occupational therapist for 21 years now, and I have a particular relevance and interest in falls because I did my master's dissertation on reduction of falls in community dwelling older adults. So I was really interested in the research around this and how occupational therapy can prevent falls. So thank you for the invitation to speak today. So the learning outcomes, which you may be aware of, or you may have been sent them, it's just to give you an increased awareness around bathroom-based falls risks, to review the falls reduction intervention that we can provide, to give you a bit of an overview, because of obviously time limitations, on the guidance on falls prevention and how it relates to occupational therapy, and a little bit of time just reflecting on any legislation and its application to the work that we do. So it's important to start with the definition of a fall, which NICE has summed it up quite well for us, and it says that a fall is defined as an unintentional or unexpected loss of balance resulting in coming to rest on the floor, the ground, or an object below knee level. So sometimes when we think about falls, we think about people mobilizing and then falling to the floor, but we need to think as a fall as slipping off a toilet or slipping off the side of a bed as well. So that would be classed as a fall, although some people who you're assessing, you might ask if they've fallen, they wouldn't necessarily recognise that as a fall, as NICE would. So a little bit on the cost of falls. There's two ways of looking at the cost of something. There's the monetary cost, which commissioners are sometimes interested in, and then there's the human cost as well. So just looking at the monetary cost of falls, falls cost the NHS around £2.3 billion a year, and 30% of over 65s and around half of over 80s fall at least once a year. And to put that into context, there's 11.9 million people in the UK who are over 69, so just under 12 million people. And there are 3.2 million people who are over 80. So if you think about half of over 80s falling, that's over 1.5 million people falling at least once a year. Hence the cost to the NHS. There's a lot of people involved. So thinking about the human cost of falls, things that you can't necessarily measure with money, falls can lead to a fear of moving around, a fear of falling again. It can lead to a decrease in activity, and as occupational therapists, that's something that we're particularly interested in. It can lead to increased isolation, so people don't want to go out as much as they were. And then there's things like pain that you can't measure in terms of money, and the effect on mental well-being that causes. People then can lead to decreased independence, so relying upon other people for doing activities. And that can kind of be summarised in the fall cycle. So somebody has a fall, they then become scared of falling again, then that leads to them becoming less active. And when they're less active, they have reduced muscle strength and reduced balance. And then in turn, that muscle wasting and reduced balance leads to an increased risk of falling. And so the cycle goes round again. And we need to look at, as occupational therapists, need to look at reducing the risk of falls and breaking that fall cycle. So, particularly looking at the consequences of falls in the bathroom. Okay. If you think about an environment in the bathroom, there are lots of hazards in a bathroom. And if you think about the surfaces in a bathroom, there's a lot of porcelain and hard surfaces and a hard floor. And so the increased amount of hazards in that bathroom leads to an increased risk of head injury. And again, the hard surfaces mean that fractures are more likely. There was a study done in 2010 that found that fractures were particularly associated with visits to the toilet. And the study said that it could be associated with hard flooring and the number of hazards within that bathroom. If you think about when you go to the toilet, you might be less likely to be able to summon help because you might not necessarily take your phone with you or some device to summon help from somebody else. And if you're unable to get help, you've got an increased risk of having a long lie. Now, a long lie is defined as somebody who's been on the floor for over 1 hour and has been unable to get up. And if somebody's on the floor for an hour, it leads to a risk of further complications such as pneumonia, pressure areas, dehydration and hypothermia. Especially in the bathroom, hypothermia is quite a risk because sometimes bathrooms aren't as warm as other areas in the house. So we need to think about that particular risk to bathrooms and falls in bathrooms. And if you're lying on a hard floor, unable to move for over an hour, and certainly if you're an older person and you've got skin integrity issues, you are more likely to develop pressure areas, and then obviously that can lead to complications. And I'm sure we've all worked with clients and patients who, because they don't want to have to go to the toilet as much, they reduce the amount of fluid intake that they are taking over the day. I've certainly met many people who said, I don't want to go to the toilet, so I'm just drinking less. Or they're not taking the medication, they might not take the water tablets to try and reduce the amount of times that they're going to the toilet. So all these things can have particular to the bathroom can have a really negative effect on somebody and their well-being. So thinking about a typical bathroom, there are a number of fall hazards that we've covered already. So think about lighting in bathrooms. Often they use spotlights, and spotlights can light an area directly below it, but doesn't necessarily give a lot of light around it. They can also cause multiple shadows. So when you have a lot of spotlights, you can get lots of shadows, which can cause difficulty for people with visual impairment and dementia. The flooring types, I don't know about you, but I've been in many bathrooms where I'm sure that the flooring that's down isn't proper flooring that's designed to be walked on. People just want everything to match and will sometimes use floor tiles on the floor. The flooring that you used in a bathroom should have a slip resistant rating, which is suitable for use of the room. So that should be something that people should be considering. The floor surfaces should be firm. They should be firmly fixed, flush, and it's important for the flooring not to have a glare, because this can increase the risk of falls because of people with visual impairments. Pattern floor should be avoided as well. Sudden changes in colour, because people sometimes can think there's a step there, and that can increase the risk of falls. And threshold strips, so the bit where you go from maybe the hallway into the bathroom, they should be carefully chosen so they're not an obstacle for a wheelchair user or for somebody who's mobile and ambulant. So flooring's a big risk in the bathroom. And then you've got the trip hazards that we sometimes see. So we see bathroom mats on the floor in front of the bath or the shower or around the toilet. And then there's other trip hazards such as toys, people storing things in the bathroom. So yeah, we just need to be careful about how many trip hazards are in the bathroom. And then you need to consider the things that are kind of, we feel, are core to us as occupational therapists, like the height and the location of the toilet, where it is, can the person transfer on and off? Is the height adequate for not only the person, but anybody else who lives in that property? Where is the toilet? Is it near a wall? Can you put any grab rails next to it? And then you need to consider things like reaching. So if you think about the location of the toilet roll, sometimes people have it on the cistern behind them, or they might have a floor standing sort of toilet roll dispenser, which in itself can cause a trip hazard. Where are they reaching for toiletries, for soap, that kind of thing? And then we need to obviously look at things like the location of the bath or the shower and the height. Are they transferring up a lip? How are they transferring into the bath? Is the bath side high? Have they got a slip mat in the bath? And then we need to think about the location and the proximity of things like the basin. So is somebody able to stand for long enough? What's their standing tolerance like? Where's the basin located? Can they easily get to the soap and the towel? So thinking about the bathroom, and it's very difficult because, you know, I can't interact with you, but just thinking about a bathroom, where do you think most falls occur in the bathroom? Because we've mentioned the number of hazards that occur, that are present in the bathroom, but there was a study done in the United States, and they looked at 3,300 emergency ER room admissions that were linked to bathroom injuries, and they found that injuries on or near the toilet were most prevalent, and this increased as people got older. So they extrapolated this into the population, so they found that 4.1 people had an injury on or near the toilet aged 15 to 24, and this increased to 266 per 100,000 of the population for people who were over 85. So the likelihood of having a fall around the toilet increases significantly with age. So we're going to look at some of the statistics around falls around the toilet before we look at why, because it's important to get an idea of the impact of falls around the toilet and why I'm speaking about this today. So in this particular study, they found that 80% of bathroom injuries were caused by falls, because injuries can occur by other things. But 80% of bathroom injuries were caused by falls. And as I've mentioned, the likelihood of injuries occurring on or around the toilet increases with age. The proportion of injuries that happened on or near the toilet was lowest among the younger age groups, around 7%, and higher among those in the older age group over 85, which was around 51.7%. And actually, surprisingly, the proportion of injuries around the bath was actually lower in older people. So less people who were older fell getting in and out of the bath or around the bath. One of the major consequences of a fall around the toilet was that older people were more likely to be hospitalised and have a serious injury. And I think that may be because of the hazards that we spoke about before and the surfaces that are really hard. And more injuries were associated with toilet transfers, and again, the likelihood increased with age. And falls in the bathroom were twice as likely to result in an injury compared with falls in the living room. And again, I think that is to do with the hard surfaces, and there's more soft furnishings in a living room, and it's more likely to be carpeted. So people are more likely to get an injury in the bathroom. So we really need to, when we're doing an assessment and we're working with people, we really need to consider all these things about falls and how falls in the bathroom are more likely to lead to more severe injuries. Okay, so causes of falls on or around the toilet. So when I looked at the research and I found out that falls around the toilet were more likely than falls in and out the bath, because I'll be honest, I initially thought it'd be falls in and out the bath. I kind of went away and had a little reflection and thought, why is this? And as part of this presentation, I found out that people use the toilet between 6 and 8 times a day on average. Now, we all know we're going to be working with people who will use the toilet more often than that, but it is around 6 to 8 times a day on average. So people are going to the toilet more, so they're more likely to fall because they're using it more. Older people are less likely to use the bath, because if they've fallen in the bath, they may be less likely to use it again in the future. And I think that it's an important basic human need to go to the toilet. It's probably, for most people, easy to go without a bath because you could manage with a strip wash, but it's near impossible to not go to the toilet. It's a basic human need that we all need to engage in. And I wondered as well, thinking about myself as a practitioner, when you're doing an assessment, are we asking the right questions? Are we drilling down and finding out exactly where somebody's fallen and how often they're going to the toilet, and whether a slip off the toilet is being classed as a fall? So we need to be thinking about the assessments that we're doing. So the research found that the causes of falls on and around the toilet were rushing to get to the toilet due to urge incontinence. And that, for me, is almost, the way to summarise it is a discrepancy between mobility and the need to get to the toilet. So if you need to get to the toilet quickly and you're perfectly mobile, it's not an issue. If you have any kind of mobility problems and you need to get to the toilet quickly, then you're going to have to rush and it's going to be more difficult for you. This American research used the term vasovagal syncope, which is just a very complex way of saying fainting. And they found that you were more likely to faint with things like urinating, bowel movements, abdominal straining. It's about a drop in blood pressure and an increase in heart rate causing fainting, and things that we do on and around the toilet can increase that risk. Then there's the causes, things like balance problems, muscle weakness. Think about what you're doing when you're on the toilet. You're reaching for the toilet roll, wiping. You're leaning out of your centre of gravity. You might be adjusting your clothing when you're standing up. You might be leaning over and reaching for the flush. You might be struggling to press the flush. You might not be able to. So that would be a reason for somebody to fall around the toilet. And then the thing that we think about probably most often is toilet transfer. So just the simple act of getting on and off the toilet can cause somebody to fall. And there was some research done in 2013 that found that sleep disturbance was one of the main risk factors and causes of falling around the toilet. People trying to get to the toilet in the night and feeling quite tired. So they also found that home hazards and footwear and muscle strength were also reasons why people fell around the toilet, but one of the main things was sleep disturbance. And then there's that fear of falling that we've mentioned before. Fear of falling is actually a risk factor and will be more likely to cause somebody to fall. Okay. So it's all right talking about falls and the human cost of falls and the monetary cost of falls, but we want to reduce the risk of falls in the bathroom. And I think the person, environment, occupation model, which you may have heard of, is a fantastic way to think about how we can reduce somebody's risk of falls in the bathroom. And the College of Occupational Therapy say that the PEO model provides a unique opportunity for occupational therapists to use their expertise to identify the complex interaction of the person, the environment and the occupation. And we can use that to undertake a multifactorial risk assessment to enable us to reduce that risk. So as occupational therapists, we understand those three factors: the person, the occupation and the environment, and we understand how they play a part in affecting occupational performance. Occupational therapists are really skilled in providing interventions that promote positive risk taking and rehabilitation. And so we don't want to eliminate people doing activities. We want to encourage them and be aware of the risk that's inherent in doing some of those activities, but manage that risk. And I think occupational therapists are the best place to do that. What it does start with, though, is a comprehensive occupational therapy assessment. So how do we reduce the risk of falls in the bathroom, around the toilet specifically? So thinking about those factors that affect falls risk, they can be broken down into intrinsic and extrinsic factors. So the intrinsic factors would come under that person bit of the PEO model. So think about how a person uses the toilet. You really need to understand the person. When do they use it? Are they taking medication to make them go to the toilet in the morning? So they get more often going in the morning and less towards the end of the day. Think about cultural issues, frequency, what diagnoses have they got, what's their vision like, have they fallen before, are they scared of falling, what medication do they take, what's their balance like, skin integrity issues. Think about their range of movement, especially in their upper limbs, with adjusting clothing, reaching round, wiping, that kind of thing. We need to really drill down and assess that person and understand them. Then we need to look at the environment, and this is very much more than just about measuring the height of the toilet and measuring door widths and things like that. We need to think, as occupational therapists, really think about that environment, think about the location of the soap and the toiletries and where are they putting the toilet paper. Think about the lighting, as I mentioned before, any glare. We do need to consider the height of the toilet. Where is the toilet? Where is it in relation to the rest of the property? Where is it in the bathroom? Are there any rails there? Have they been put up by somebody that maybe didn't know where the best place, the most optimal place for that rail is? Is there anything we can do as occupational therapists to change that? What assistive devices have they got? So have they got a riser recliner chair that they're using to stand up from, but then going to the toilet and really struggling to transfer on and off the toilet because they don't have anything to help them, and maybe their muscles aren't as strong as they used to be? So think about the environment in the bathroom, especially around the toilet, because that's really important, as I mentioned, because that's where most falls happen for older people. And then think about the occupation of toileting. Okay, so if we think about activity analysis, go right back to the university days of analysing an activity. sometimes when we're doing an initial assessment with somebody, you might be meeting somebody for the first time and you're going into their home and you're having to ask them about intimate details of their daily life, like toileting. But I think it's really important to get a full understanding of that activity analysis, of that person, of the occupation of toileting, to understand how you can help them. So are they standing up to wipe or do they sit down? Can they use their left hand or the right hand? How are they adjusting their clothing? Who is helping them? Are they having a family member help them? Are they having to wait for carers to call at particular times of the day? Is that what they want? Do they want independence? This is what we should be asking people. What are their goals and what are their choices? And think about what other people do, what people do in their bathroom as well. They might take their phone to the toilet and sit and catch up on emails and text messages. They might sit and read on the toilet. So don't just think of toileting as transferring on and off. There are so many different factors related to toileting, and we need to think about that as occupational therapists and remember how great we are and how fantastic we are at activity analysis. And that's why it's really important to build a rapport with your patient or client on that initial visit, where you can get a full understanding of how they're managing in the bathroom, especially with toileting. So how do we reduce the risk of falls in the bathroom? There's been quite a lot of studies around this, and there's been some really robust research done, including randomised control trials, which have demonstrated how home environment modification can reduce falls. So that's looking at the environment in the bathroom around the toilet and modifying that environment. And you can see there's some examples of things that can be done in the bathroom to modify the environment. Some more research said that home modifications with advice provided by an occupational therapist is a less invasive and restrictive intervention than medication and may help to avoid falls. So we would like to think, wouldn't we, that our intervention that we're doing, we're very much working in partnership with the client. And we don't want our intervention to be restrictive or invasive in any way. We want to help people meet their goals and be as independent as possible. And I think that's where occupational therapists can really look at the interaction of the person and the environment and the occupation and really understand the importance of environmental modifications on this. We need to also think about not what's happening today and tomorrow, but we are very good as occupational therapists looking at the future. So looking beyond next week and next month. And I think we need to be future-proofing bathrooms. So very early on, looking at falls risk. And hopefully today you'll understand the risks that are inherent in using the toilet and thinking about long-term, how can we reduce the risk of falls in the longer term. Okay, just looking at the time. So we've looked at falls risk and we've looked at ways to reduce the risk, and we've looked at the person environment occupation model and the importance of the occupational therapy assessment. So what do the Royal College of Occupational Therapy say about falls? Basically they've published this document, and it's a practice guidance on the prevention and management of falls in adults. It was first published in 2015 and it's been updated this year. If you haven't had a look and you have an interest in falls, we can send you links to this out following this presentation today. It's a huge document. It's completely evidence-based. It brings together research on falls, but it also makes some suggestions for research in the future. So if anybody's really interested in falls and you want to do some research, you can go and have a look at this document. Okay, so there's 17 recommendations in total. There is not time to go through them all. So I've just picked out some pertinent ones to discuss today, briefly. The first recommendation, the statement was amended in 2020. There was a bit of new evidence added, and it says that occupational therapists should carry out with people who have fallen who are at risk of falls an occupational therapist-led home hazard assessment, including intervention and follow-up to optimise functional activity and safety. So that's around assessment and prevention. Recommendation 8, they added some new evidence again in 2020, and they said that occupational therapists should look at ways of enabling the person to minimise the risk of falling when performing their chosen activities. And wherever this could improve confidence and enable realistic risk taking. And point 10 is about occupational therapists sharing the knowledge and understanding of falls prevention and management strategies with the person that we're working with. And this should provide personally relevant information and take into account the person's individual fall risk factors, lifestyle and preferences. That's what we do. We assess an individual and we understand individuals as occupational beings. So we would look at exactly what they're doing and how they're doing it and work with them to reduce that falls risk. So looking at the NICE quality standards, they've produced a couple of documents, and again, we can send you links if you haven't seen these documents. NICE have said that there's growing evidence that having early identification, multifactorial assessment and early intervention can make a significant impact on the individuals who are at risk of falls. And again, that's about prevention. So we need to think about what we're doing, how we're assessing people and how we're planning for the future. They recommend that a multifactorial risk assessment should be offered to older people who present for medical attention because of a fall or recurrent falls in the last 12 months. And home hazard assessment was identified as one component of this approach. But it's really important to say that a standalone home hazard assessment isn't effective. That's what the research and the guidance says. It should be part of a multifactorial assessment and intervention. So you couldn't go and just look at the home modifications and home hazards. You do need to look at things like strength and balance training as well. And NICE have recommended further research into environmental adaptations to prevent falls in older inpatients. So that's just highlighting there that NICE have sort of picking up on how important the environment is in prevention of falls. There's not a lot of time, but I just wanted to briefly touch on the CARE Act. So the CARE Act is enshrined in law, and it has 6 principles which I think are really closely aligned to the philosophy, the skills and the practice of occupational therapists. So if you think about empowerment and prevention and partnership, that's what we do instinctively as clinicians. And I think that the prevention agenda is the most important thing when we're thinking about falls. The CARE Act doesn't specifically define what prevention is, but it's seen as a range of measures that promote health and independence and well-being. Okay, and that's what we're trying to do as occupational therapists. The Royal College of OT have published some guidance on the CARE Act, and it's you don't have to be a member, it's a public document if you want to go and have a look for some more information on that. So there's 3 different types of prevention approaches. There's the primary, so you need to look at avoiding falls before they even happen. So that's about maintenance of independence. So that's about early intervention, preventing falls before they happen. Secondary prevention is about reducing the risk of further falls if somebody has had a fall. And then tertiary prevention is maximising independence. So think about people who may have carers assisting them. Is that what they want? Do we need to look at them being more independent? Can we do that with solutions around the toilet, with the provision of equipment and adaptations? Okay, so just looking at the time, what I want you to take away today really is the risk of falls in the bathroom and the consequences are far-reaching, and there's particular risks that are inherent in using the toilet. And I really believe that occupational therapists can make a crucial impact in the reduction of falls by using that PEO model, assessing and understanding the complex interaction of a person, the environment and the occupation of toileting. So that's what I would like you to take away today. I think this can be done very closely working with product specialists such as Jeff, who I'll pass you over to now, who works for Closomat. And I think partnership working works really well here. So I shall pass you on to Jeff, and there'll be time for questions at the end.
Thank you, Lucy. We'll just wait for Jeff to log in. Whilst we're doing that, just really quickly wanted to, Jeff, don't forget to put yourself on video as well. Just briefly wanted to do a couple of polls. And then what I want to remind people as well is that Lucy and Samantha from the OT service, along with our product specialist, will also be available at the end of the session for a Q&A. So do please stay on, and or indeed, as Jeff's presenting his work, to pass any questions along to them. So first off, just like to launch another poll. Just quickly asking, what type of agreements does your organisation usually have in place when choosing suppliers for DFG? And again, it may not be that relevant to you, but is it framework, no agreements, case by case, mix of frameworks and case by case? Not sure or not relevant, which again, I would expect for the majority of you, it's going to be within that area. Just give you a couple of seconds because I'm also wary of time. Okay, we're up to a good percentage. Thanks again for everybody for voting on these. Okay, I'll just give it one more. Okay, nearly up to 80%, which is great. Okay, as I thought, majority of you not sure, not relevant. But of those, I did put in there, it's a real mix of frameworks and case by case. So many thanks for that. And the next one is on when choosing your toilet. So choosing adaptations for the bathroom, how often would you specify a wash-dry toilet as part of the overall work required? So would that be every time? Would that be 1 in 2, 50%, 25%, 10%? 1 in 20, less than 1 in 20, or you don't specify wash-dry toilets currently, maybe because it's not your job role, or the like. Okay, great. Again, brilliant. Thanks for the responses. I can see there from Trudy, less than 1 in 20, which less than 1 in 20 is about the average that I can see on here, sort of 2/3 of you in total, sort of between 1 in 20 and less than 1 in 20. Great, thank you for that. And then next one, really quickly through this one. When selecting the type of toilet required, what do you normally specify for someone who can't wipe their own bottom easily? Would it be the wash-dry toilet, i.e. Closomat? Is it bio-bidet? Standard toilet maybe? Depends on a disability, not sure. Or you don't specify because it's not your job role. It's good to see that the wash-dry toilet is the highest percentage on here. Always good to see on our Closomat presentation. So thanks everybody for that, and a really good percentage of numbers as well. And I think the other one on here is it depends on the disability, which is exactly right. So thank you for that. And final one for me, and then I'll hand you over to Jeff, which is what's your go-to shower chair supplier when specifying to fit over a toilet, not necessarily wash-dry, but any toilet. So it'd be good to, again, there's multiple choice on here, so put more than one down if you use more than one, depending upon the situation. But it'd be good for us just to sort of understand, to ensure that we have the right compatibility of our toilet to make sure that it fits the shower chairs that you want them to fit with. So that's really the rationale behind this question. What we can see on here is more than half of you specify or your go-to shower chair or Prism and Freeway, and then probably around sort of 15–20% Chilton, and similar for Invacare. I'll just wait one more minute. Okay, that's brilliant. Well, thanks everybody for that, and that's it as far as the polling is concerned. And now I'd like to hand you over to Jeff. Thanks, Jeff.
Oh, thanks, Stephen, for that. I hope you can all hear me okay. For those of you who don't know me, obviously I'm Jeff Clark, and I cover I'm a product specialist for the Home Counties North area, which basically is the band across from Oxfordshire to Essex, including Buckinghamshire, Bedfordshire and Hertfordshire, plus most of North London. And I've been with Closomat for 4 years. So, obviously, what we do about Closomat, most people know about our wash-dry toilets, and maybe even the air-let toilet lifters, of which Lucy alludes to one of her photographs. Toilet lifters can be used to assist with sit-to-stand transfers and help to reduce the risk of falls or enable more independence or even single-handed care. But what you may not do is we do a lot of other bathroom equipment in partnership with some of our trusted suppliers such as Presslit and Lyco Hill-Rom. And that includes we have a long-standing installations of changing places in the public space. So many places like theme parks and motorway service stations, shopping centres. We can also do different shower chairs and changing benches, hoists as well, which I'll come on to later again with Lyco. Other things like shower seats, wash hand basins and drop down rails. Now what Lucy alluded to earlier was looking at the whole situation in terms of people's transfers on and off the toilet, for example, and as part of an assessment we would do, looking at that, and it may be that adjusting the height of the toilet or looking at rails and so on can help with those transfers. And it's always good to have that discussion with occupational therapists and the clients involved. So just briefly about the Palm Vita toilet. I won't go into too much detail about it today, but just to remind you that it can be adapted in many ways to make it very easy for the client to use. Main reason is we look to get the most effective wash possible, and what generally people want is the easiest way to do that, to get hygienically clean after using the toilet. We may also look at future proofing and discussing whether the client's needs will change in the short, medium or even long term, and that adaptability of the toilet really aids that discussion, as it can be adapted sometimes with accessories at a later time. Looking at the safe working load, obviously we can a standard look at up to 30 stone in weight capacity, but we can also improve that or increase that to over 50 stone with certain accessories. And then finally we've got the Palm Alive at the bottom here, which is a 10 years servicing and warranty, which you have the option of, which I'll discuss more later. So just finally, again, we have the bathroom covered. We can provide hoists, and not just in the bathroom, but obviously many situations call for bedroom hoisting or hoisting in the living room, maybe onto a shower chair, which then gets transported into the bathroom to use over the toilet or in the shower. So we use Lyco hoists as our partner. Now we also have changing benches and height adjustable wash basins. Again, they can, in certain situations, improve the risk of, reduce the risk of falls. And they also in different living situations, multiple user environments, for example. And these are done in conjunction with our partner Presslit equipment. So just a quick slide on compliance. Closomat as a company, all our products are RAS approved with the Water Regulatory Advisory Service regulations, which means that obviously it's very important when you have toilets connected into the mains water supply. Now we also have our ISO marks, both for environment and quality management, and also very important to us is health and safety in all parts of the business, and I'll come on to that as part of our risk assessments as well. So how does a product specialist support us, as myself and my colleagues? We work with occupational therapists, and we take on responsibility for the whole process if necessary. We can do surveys and assessments both in partnership with the occupational therapists and the clients, or alone if necessary. And we can look at the variations of the products and how it will work with the client, both including things like different types of seat, different seat heights, different wash arms in terms of how the sprays work. Talking again around the transferring on and off the toilet as well, whether it be helping with arms or different equipment. And as well, that we can obviously demonstrate how the products work, not so much in a real live basis at the moment, but we have lots of videos and accessories, and in video calls we can do things as well, and surveys regarding installation. So not just looking at how the person uses the toilet, the client uses the toilet, but also how it fits into the bathroom space, and how that can affect things like whether it be using shower chairs or moving around the bathroom space. And if our recommendations are followed, we have the Closomat no quibble guarantee, which means it's always a little bit of an art in terms of getting the right specification for the toilet. So if we do not get it quite right, we can go back and adjust that with no issues at all. So as part of the changing situation due to COVID and coronavirus, since the spring, we, like you, have found different ways and new ways of working, mainly in order to reduce the risks of transmission to our clients, especially, also to our customers like yourselves, the occupational therapists, and to our own staff as well. So we have our full risk assessment, which we have done, which has improved our remote assessments. And as part of our remote assessments, we use different facilities, whether it be telephone calls, photographs, which either the clients or client's carer can send into, or the occupational therapist can send in to us. Using emails, we have online questionnaires as well, which we can use to get the information that we require. People have used videos, walkthroughs, and also a very good option is a video risk assessment, a video three-way call. Both yourselves, the occupational therapist, the client, and the product specialist, three-way video call, maybe with even a carer may be involved, for example, to get the information required. We are able to go out on site as well, following our legal risk assessment if a remote assessment isn't possible for any reason. And as part of that, we will follow our risk assessment to do it socially distanced and following all the right protocols to make sure that everyone is as safe as possible, both the client and the product specialist. So as part of that, we do have a document which we can send out, which outlines our remote assessment process, which you are able to distribute to colleagues and clients. That can put at rest any issues they have or questions they have regarding our remote assessment process. Again, if necessary, they can always ring into Closomat and we can discuss it with them. So as part of that remote assessment, there's 4 stages, some of which can take place all at once. But we have an initial discussion with the person referring to us, a quick pre-assessment phone call to see what facilities are available and whether they can undertake the online questionnaire, maybe send us in some photographs. The assessment call, which again can be done on the phone or by video, and then finally we can provide a quotation as we did before, a fully spec'd up quotation, but if necessary, if things aren't available to do, we can still do a subject to survey quotation as we would have done in the past as well. So as part of the new way of working, we can also offer virtual team meetings, which can be used as part of your professional development. So this can give more education, what to consider about when specifying a wash dry toilet, some of the things I've briefly talked about today, or other equipment. including things like our area toilet lifters as well, again to make if you're thinking of reducing the risks of falls. So we have this document which you can send out, but the best thing to do is to contact your local product specialist. We can go through what your needs are in terms of your team meetings. So as Closomat, we like to take responsibility to take that away from, to reduce that from your hands. So installation is a part of that as well. So a couple of quick points regarding that. And we want to make sure they're done as best as possible for the client, ideally first time correctly, which obviously part of that includes the assessment taken in part, both the client assessment and for the building survey, but also working with contractors and distributors to help get things right in the first instance, the first time. What that does is that reduces further call outs and obviously the costs involved in that. So we have our online installer training, which is going to give everybody confidence and peace of mind. And again, you can always contact your product specialists for any issues around discussions around installations as well. So as part of that installation, the follow-up, we have our commissioning process. Now, the commissioning is some myths about it. We can use the toilet as soon as it's installed, but the commissioning process is the final check and gives everybody an extra level of support to the client, especially when the unit is installed by a third-party contractor. And that is usually done can be done within 10 days when the contractor lets us know on installation, using by either a phone call into the office or a quick QR code questionnaire. As part of that commission process, like I say, it provides that level of support and protects the investment about making sure that the specification is done correctly. Any adjustments can be made, or issues that the client has about the toilet can be made, can be raised, because it may have been from 2 months or up to 2 years in some cases since that initial assessment about the wash dry toilet was carried out. So things may have changed, which may not have been picked up on in that time. And what that does is that protects that investment, make sure that the client can use it properly, use the toilet properly, get the best out of it, and make sure it meets their needs. So I mentioned earlier about Palmolive and the 10-year service and warranty plan. Many Closomat toilets are provided with 5 years service and warranty included in the DFG, but there is an option for 10 years cover, which especially may be worth considering for younger clients. When I say younger, that could be anything under 50, but especially for young adults. This keeps the toilet working for 10 years. And especially with the environments a lot of wash dry toilets are in, they can be quite corrosive in terms of wet rooms, but this keeps the toilet working for 10 years with no necessary input from yourselves as an occupational therapist or a grant team, and the client knows they have that support at the end of the phone to sort out any problems without any hassle about calling the housing provider or the council. We can send out this document which gives you a bit more detail, and more talk from your more information is available from your product specialist. We take responsibility for all parts of the process, and this continues on after the toilet is installed. And when we talk about warranty versus a service plan, lots of products, including, for instance, your car, come with a warranty. What that generally means is you have protection against manufacturing defects. A lot of the time, it will not often cover natural wear and tear over time. So with a service, when you get your car serviced, for example, you have the oil changed and you have other things looked at. It's the same. It can be the same with your toilet as well. Like I mentioned earlier, they can be in quite corrosive environments, lots of steam and rust and things like that, and hard water areas, and things can get damaged in terms of wear and tear over time. Other warranties as well may require regular maintenance by the client or yourselves, which may be difficult to carry out. And if it isn't carried out, it may invalidate a warranty in place. So what we have is our service plan, and that covers not just call-outs, which may not be covered in a normal warranty. Just an example, a sewing machine, for example, if it goes wrong, you can box it up and you can send it back to the manufacturer or the supplier. Can't really do that with your toilet. So our servicing is an annual visit by one of our engineers, and that replaces any worn out parts, and importantly carries out a safety check as well to make sure everything's still working in place. And then that following on includes a further 12 months cover of parts and labour warranty. And so you have unlimited call-outs, and that report can also be sent back to the provider as well. And this funding, this can be provided under funding by the Disabled Facilities Grant for up to 10 years. So the servicing, we have our own team of engineers, so it's not a third-party supplier that does it. And it's, like I say, it's after sales extra service there. So unlimited call-outs during that year of the servicing that is in place, and those contracts are available for varying lengths of time. Actually, we've talked about Palmer Life for up to 10 years, but contracts are available for 1 year up to 10 years. And we can provide a full service history of the Closomats, which can be especially useful for council properties and also housing associations as well. So we have all the information on Closomats involved, any adjustments that have been taking place, and any servicing and any issues that have been carried out. And the engineers can check things that may cause issues in the future. So I'll pass you back to Stephen now. Thanks for your time, and I'll hand you back over.
That's great. Thank you, Jeff. And hopefully that was useful for everyone. I know there's people who have attended these webinars before may well have seen some of that information. Maybe you missed it last time or not. So hopefully that was extremely useful. So first of all, apologies for the time. We haven't got much time left now, I know, but I'm always keen that we give much opportunity for certainly the OT service to get across their learnings for you, which is the major part of the learning outcomes for yourself today. So Jeff, if you could move it on the slide, that would be great. Thank you. We do have a huge amount of resources available, and all the resources that Lucy mentioned today, we will put on online for yourselves. We will send you the CPD certificate to everybody that attended today, and also a copy of the slides that you've seen. So without further ado, are there any questions? We'll open it out. We have got Samantha from the OT service, Jeff, as you know. We've also got Nicola and Gina, who are a product specialist for Closomat. So if there are any other questions, then please do either go for the Q&A or chat. I don't know if there are any others, guys, that you want to pick up on.
There was just one, Stephen. There was a question about people falling in the bathroom and the door opening into the bathroom. So paramedics not being able to get to people behind the door who've fallen. And there was a suggestion about doors that open both ways, both into the bathroom and out on a different type of hinge. I did write some reply to it, but my thoughts on that is that it would depend on an individual risk assessment, and you wouldn't put that on every bathroom that you went to. You would look at an individual risk assessment. I think that there would be a great idea, but you'd have to look at what was at the top of the stairs as well, what you were opening the door out onto. What I've done a lot in adaptations is done sliding doors and sometimes pocket doors, where the door sort of slides into the wall, so it doesn't take up any room in the bathroom or outside of the bathroom. So well, I'm not aware of any research. That was the question that was asked, but I'm not aware of any research on that particular issue.
Okay, great. Thank you, Lucy. Okay, I know the guys have been frantically responding to all the Q&A and chats as we've gone along. If there aren't any other direct ones, we can certainly, we'll actually take all the Q&As away, and if there's any we haven't responded to, that we will we will try and respond to you directly. Jeff, you could just push it on one slide, that would be great. So just as a summary for learning outcomes, you can see those on there. I think it's been a really good comprehensive session today from Lucy, so I'd like to really thank Lucy for the content today, and also to Jeff for taking people through the Closomat agenda for today as well. In terms of accessing all the links that Lucy mentioned, I will send those out, so you'll have all of those available to you. We'll do that. What are we on Tuesday today? That'll be done by the end of this week. So that'll be along with the certificate for your CPD learning and all of the links that you need. So unless there are any other questions, given the time that we're on, I'd like to say once again, thanks for everybody for attending. We will be doing a number of these over the next month or so. So do watch out on the invites for further webinars. We can be contacted through info@Closomat. Live chats available 9 till 5 every day, Monday to Friday. And that's a really good resource if you've got any issues, any problems, any technical questions you might have. There's always somebody available, and you can go there through this link or via our website, which is closomat.co.uk. And that's really it from me. As I say, thanks to everybody for attending today. Big thanks to the OT service once again, and thanks to the Closomat colleagues, and stay safe, and we'll speak to you all soon. Thank you.